you guys today, how much longer will this united front of the players union stay united as bills pile up, as cars get repossessed, as they begin to get kicked out of their apartment complexes? How much longer until the 10th, 11th woman on the roster, the ones who make 80?
That's the riddle that's haunting WNBA power brokers after dark, because right now the players union performs a flawless truce. 97% chose to greenlight a walkout, yet behind sealed corridors, there's a humming countdown device. 2/3 of the league's athletes aren't inside Unrivaled. They're not collecting those $220,000 paychecks for 8 weeks of grind. They're stranded at home watching their bank accounts bleed while the icons remain untouched for now.
This is an article by the Sports Business Journal. Talks between the WNBA and Players Association have stalled, and the union's, quote, upper hand at the bargaining table is slipping as soon as the players will be faced with the question of how long they can hold out, according to Adam Minter of Bloomberg News. It is a necessary but dispiriting thought, considering that the leverage was well earned.
Sports Business Journal just released a piece that should shake the Players Association. The story exposes precisely what's unfolding, and it's deeply unsettling. The union's power keeps eroding quickly. Because here's what many people still fail to grasp here. Caitlin Clark arrived, and instantly those players gained real power for the very first moment ever in league history. Historic ratings, packed buildings, enormous media agreement. But that power comes with a ticking clock. And we're watching it run out live.
All earned, we mean Caitlin Clark showed up and they suddenly had some leverage in their pocket. Publicly, the Players Association is presenting a united front, but the outward appearance masks a complex private reality. Many players can't afford to wait indefinitely. Unrivaled provides a lens for understanding the divide. This season, 54 top WNBA Hoopers, about a third of the WNBA's active rosters in 2025, are participating in Unrivaled. For them, Unrivaled and its big paychecks of roughly $220,000 for an 8-week season are a nice cushion while
Let's break down the numbers here. In 2025, 54 elite WNBA players, that's nearly 1/3 of active lineups, are competing in Unrivaled. They're earning around $220,000 for 8 weeks. That's a solid buffer when talks stall on. But what about the remaining 100 players? The ones earning $80,000 base pay, the grinders, the reserves, the 11th and 12th women on the bench. They don't have sponsorship deals. They're not landing Unrivaled contracts. They're the ones who feel the money squeeze first now.
AKA, they're gonna dry up on their savings. AKA, they're gonna need money. AKA, they got bills. A WNBA lockout or strike also poses economical risks for the WNBA. The league is in a much stronger financial position than its players to withstand a protracted delay or cancellation. Well, no shit. Pardon my language. Duh. Now, Natasha Cloud actually spoke about this before, and we've talked about this, that the players in Unrivaled, they don't really care about the other 100 players.
And this is where it turns genuinely dangerous. Natasha Cloud has actually spoken about this tension before. The players inside Unrivaled, and let's be real for a second, they aren't losing sleep over the other 100 women in the league. If a lockout hits, they're protected. They'll simply stretch the Unrivaled season, earn a bit more cash, and keep hooping. Life stays easy for them. Meanwhile, the role players are staring down a totally different nightmare. Bills stacking up, car notes looming, rent payments failing. Eventually, that 97% solidarity begins to fracture.
They just want to get paid all the money that they feel that they missed during the NIL era. That's what a lot of this is, along with ego. A lot of this is players that missed the NIL era, sees Caitlin Clark. They don't want to admit it, but she's the dollar signs here. And they say, well, this is our only chance, really. This is our only chance that we're going to be able to cash in. Let's try.
Here's what so much of this really boils down to: pride and lost timing. A lot of these veterans completely missed the nil wave. They watched college stars start pulling in millions while they were surviving overseas on $70,000 a year. Then Caitlin Clark arrives, and suddenly real money starts flooding into the league. This is their moment, maybe the only window they'll ever get to cash out. So they're going all in, demanding 30% of total revenue and a $10.5 million salary cap. The danger is they may be pushing too far.
Talking about WNBA could be weeks away from delaying season. Despite releasing the schedule earlier this week, the WNBA likely needs to agree to a CBA by February to start the season on time. The WNBA wants everybody to believe the 2026 season will tip off on May 8th. It asserted as much with an announcement of a 44-game slate and a statement that explained in part the move was to allow, quote, essential planning to begin. The reality of where collective bargaining agreement negotiations stand paint a different.
The league's most recent offer actually isn't disastrous. A top salary of $1 million climbing past $1.3 million with revenue sharing. They're putting roughly 70% of net revenue on the table across the life of the agreement. The salary cap opens at $5 million in year one and rises alongside league growth. That's a dramatic leap from today's reality. But the union is pressing harder. They want calculations tied to gross revenue instead of net, a core distinction that could bleed the league for hundreds of millions.
Maybe they'll get the point and send us something better. But remember, Breanna Stewart yesterday said, oh, they're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. How can you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you liar? Whatever. In that proposal, the union is seeking a 30% share of the league's gross revenue and a salary cap of $10.5 million. The league's latest proposal includes a max base salary of $1 million, which would increase to more than $1.3 with revenue share. The league's proposing roughly 70% of its net revenue over the span of the deal. The salary cap would be at $5 million in year one and would grow in tandem with the league's.
Now, let's get into what's truly hanging in the balance. According to Annie Costable's reporting, the WNBA may be only weeks away from pushing the season back. Even after releasing the schedule this week, 44 games beginning May 8th, the truth behind closed doors paints a far darker picture. As of January 23rd, the Players' Union was still waiting for a reply from the league on a proposal they sent almost a full month earlier, before Christmas. They passed through the holidays, New Year's, and now it's late January with nothing but silence coming from the league.
The scenario for free agency would be early March, and that's if the ink dries on a new CBA by early February, giving the WNBA the rest of the month to plan and conduct an expansion draft. Multiple league sources believe the best case scenario would be early March, given the ink dries by early February. We are about 2 weeks away from early February. February's in 7 days, 8 days. 2 weeks, we're sitting what, February 5th, February 6th? They need to get a deal soon before we start pushing the schedule back.
And this is where Breanna Stewart's remarks start to feel shaky. She said yesterday, they're beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But how do you spot light when the league hasn't answered your proposal in an entire month? That isn't momentum. That's deadlock. Meanwhile, general managers remain completely in the dark on expansion draft rules. Toronto Tempo and Portland Fire need clarity to shape their rosters, but they can't plan anything without a CBA finalized. The core designation, comparable to the NBA's franchise tag, is on the table in talks, and it could drastically reshape which players even hit the expansion draft.
However, in the middle of free agency, front offices will also be preparing for the 2026 WNBA draft, currently held April 13th. The league has never lost games to a work stoppage in its 29-year history. The next 2 weeks will be an indicator of whether its 30th season will be the first time it does. If the deal doesn't get done soon, might not be a lockout, it might not be a strike, but at the bare minimum, they're going to need to delay the season or start chopping some games off. Instead of a 44 game, it'll be a 38 game. They missed the first 6 games because they push it back 2 weeks. They mixed the first 10 games because they push it back a month.
Multiple league insiders think the absolute best case for free agency would be early March, but that only happens if a new CBA is finalized by early February. We're 7 days away from February. That leaves maybe 2 weeks to strike a deal, lock the language, and get signatures done. Then they'd need the rest of February to organize and run an expansion draft. In a normal year, free agency opens in early January and major deals are finished by early February, and we're way behind that schedule. Training camp is set for April 19th. The draft is April 13th. Everything is starting to jam up in earlier.
How much longer will that 97% of players that agreed with the strike dwindles to 90%, dwindles to 80%, dwindles to 65%? Might not be able to vote again. I doubt they can vote on that again. But the rumblings and the talk behind the scene, it'll get back to them. And they'll say, damn, we're not really united anymore. these girls fractured and they don't agree with it anymore, and they're kind of starving, and they need to pay for this, and she needs to pay for that. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Appreciate all the support.
So here's what's actually unfolding. If a deal doesn't land soon, this isn't automatically a full shutdown or a dramatic walkout. But at the very least, the season starts slipping. Games get trimmed. 44 turns into 38 after missing 6. Maybe it drops to 34 if the delay stretches a full month. In 29 years, the league has never lost a single game to labor conflict. The next 2 weeks will decide whether year 30 breaks that streak. And that pulls us back to the core question. How long does unity really last? It's 97% right now. But what happens when it slides to 90%, then 80%, then 65%? There likely won't be another strike authorization vote, but the whispers behind the curtain will reach leadership.at that point. The stars will feel their leverage fading because half the locker room no longer believes in the plan. Think about the position this forces role players into. They're being asked to gamble their financial stability so Breanna Stewart and Nneka Ogwumike can chase maximum contracts they'll never touch. A new CBA could raise base salaries from $80,000 to $250,000. That's life-changing money for the 12th woman on a roster, but only if there's a season to play. If a strike hits or a lockout lands, that money vanishes. Rent doesn't vanish. Car payments don't vanish. Student loans don't vanish. The unrivaled players can afford patience. They earn more in 8 weeks than most players make in an entire season. They can stretch their season, keep cashing checks, and treat these negotiations like a mild annoyance. For everyone else, this is survival. This is how bills get paid. And eventually, those players will look at Breanna Stewart, Aya Wilson, and Sabrina Ionescu and realize something painful. You don't actually care about us. You care about maximizing your own upside. That's what makes this so frustrating. The league's offer isn't bad. It's not perfect, but it's real. A $1 million max salary is a massive leap from today. 70% of net revenue is significant. A cap that rises with league growth means players directly benefit from success. But the union is holding out for 30% of gross revenue, and that's a fundamentally different ask. Gross doesn't factor in operating costs, league expenses, or reinvestment. It's demanding money before the bills are even paid. The NBA gives players about 50% of basketball-related income, but that's BRI, not gross. It's a carefully defined pool that excludes certain costs. What WNBA players want is 30% of gross, which in practice is even more aggressive than the NBA's split once you account for the math. And they're demanding it while the league is still losing money, still propped up by the NBA, still trying to stand on its own. Look, the frustration makes sense. Players have been underpaid for decades. They've watched the NBA print billions while they scraped by. They've flown overseas just to survive. That anger is justified. But there's a difference between fighting for fairness and pushing so hard that you walk away with nothing. Right now, the union is edging dangerously close to that cliff. Because here's the truth. If the season is delayed or canceled, momentum dies. Caitlin Clark's rookie wave was lightning in a bottle. Ratings, crowds, media buzz, those don't freeze and restart on command. Fans drift. Sponsors hesitate. The league finally had mainstream oxygen, and it's risking everything over the gap between a good deal and a perfect one. The league has more leverage than most people realize. Yes, it needs players, but it can also wait. It has the NBA behind it. It has resources. It can survive a delay or even a lost season, far better than the players can. And the league understands it. That's why they've let the union's proposal sit untouched for a full month. They're letting the tension rise, letting the fractures form, letting role players start asking questions no one wants to hear. And those questions are already surfacing. When the 10th woman on the roster can't cover her car payment, she's going to ask why she's bleeding for Breanna Stewart's max deal. When the 11th woman opens an eviction notice, she's going to wonder whether authorizing a strike ever protected her at all. When the 12th woman is eating ramen at night because her savings are gone, she'll realize the unrivaled players aren't hurting whatsoever. That's when the union's stance implodes. Not because the league suddenly sweetened the offer, but because the players can't afford to keep fighting. And that's exactly the outcome the league is banking on. They're playing the long game, trusting time, trusting pressure, trusting that money stress will eventually splinter unity. It's ruthless, it's strategic, and it's likely effective. So the real issue isn't whether the players deserve more. They do. The question is whether they're willing to gamble everything they've already won chasing a deal that may never materialize. Because if this drags into March, into April, if games start disappearing or the season gets pushed, they may look back and realize a strong offer slipped through their hands while they chased perfection. What do you think happens next? Do the role players finally break formation? Does the union stay firm and force the league to blink, or does this spiral into a delayed season where everyone loses? Drop your prediction below. Hit subscribe and tell me if I'm wrong, because one way or another, we're about to find out how united this players' union truly is.